Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast, way out there in the Pacific Ocean and Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Hawaii. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a sunny day. Always makes me puts me in a good mood. I'm excited about today's training. We're going to be diving into step 2 of the 7-step process, targeting and finding people, frankly, at agencies, etc. I wanted to give a quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time, just as a quick thank you for you. But one thing you might consider doing, it helps me, but it sure will help you. And this is why I'm giving you the tip. Consider tagging friends, colleagues, etc. when you come into an event like this. You just put at Joe, hey, I'm at this event. You should come join me. You can also go into my event and you can go down in LinkedIn and share it out onto your feed. When you do this, you do two things, right? One, obviously, you help build this community. You're making it stronger by bringing other people in, inviting them. But the other is you're letting other people know about this event where they can come in and benefit from what we're teaching. I'm teaching tactical guidance on how to do things in federal sales today and pretty much every single day. It's the same thing. And so consider doing that. When you do it, you get borrowed credibility. So whether you share my thing or something from another person or from an agency, when you share something other people value, even though I'm creating the training, the people will thank you for letting them know. Like, they won't thank me, they'll thank you. And that's called borrowed credibility and social selling. And you want to begin to explore that and get good at it. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into today's training. I'm going to pull up my screen, get rocking and rolling. And again, we're talking about targeting today, finding points of contact. So if you haven't seen me talk about the 7-step process before, today's topic, finding POCs at federal agencies through targeting. Targeting is the second of 7 steps if you want to have federal revenue success. It really is this straightforward of a process. When you think about how can you succeed in the federal government, you research your agency, you build a list of people that you want to reach out to, which is what we're talking about today, targeting, and then you call them up and you try to get some meetings in order to develop strategic relationships, which will lead to slam dunk opportunities going into your pipeline. Those are opportunities you're pretty guaranteed to win, all things being equal, right? And when you have slam dunk opportunities in your pipeline, the proposal side of your business is able to churn out not just proposals, but winning proposals. Those are the type of proposals KOs or contracting officers look at and they're like, golly, I wish I could award to this company. And they might have 2 or 3 winning proposals, right? So it might be a tough decision compared to getting a proposal from you where they say, yeah, thanks for submitting it. No, right? And so we want you to submit winning proposals, and that will lead to federal sales, federal revenue. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about what targeting is, why you should do it. It's really important to think about any of these process activities in anything that you're doing, but in particular, what I'm teaching you, understand the why behind it, because it makes it so much easier to get energy behind learning the skill and developing that skill into a habit. So I'm going to talk about why to do targeting, when you should be doing targeting, when in the overall process, your sales process, who are you going to exactly target? When I say targeting and creating a target list, who really am I talking about? And then the last thing I'm going to wrap up with is the meatiest part, right? Is where and how you can do the targeting. Really, how you do the targeting is basically where. So I'll put those together in the same slide, and we're going to dive into that, talking about it. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I want to welcome you to the federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner, and then in 2018 started the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. And since then, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. A process goes A to Z, or research to sales. And when you follow the process, you're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you and for your business. Do me a favor, in the chat, put your company name, put your core competency, 2 or 3 words. I was just talking to a new customer this morning about what they do, and they do data management. I loved it. Like, we were talking about these different things, and they said data management. I'm like, that's perfect, because data management, the reason I want you to put it in chat is it sinks into my head. And when I'm dealing with other people and they say something or have a need around data or an opportunity around data, I'm going to remember her. I'm going to say, oh, she does data management. I don't know the depth of what her company does, but the core competency can be described in 2 or 3 words. In her case, data management. And so put that in. It's really important to help people do that. Let others know if you're open to connecting on LinkedIn. If you're a second connection to me, I'm definitely going to reach out and connect with you. I'm assuming you're on LinkedIn and this is a networking platform. So let's network, let's connect, and let others know that you're going to do that. The last thing is to let me know. I'm going to be talking about targeting today, and targeting really is about going after a federal agency. What is your primary agency? That's what I'd like you to put into the chat. If you're not driving, right? Put it into the chat or the comments. Just let me know what your target agency is. It'll be interesting for me to look at those results, but it'll also be interesting for you to see the results of other people. You might see 2 or 3 people saying, hey, I'm going after the Army, and you can come together. Hey, let's take this offline and talk about the Army. All right. If you can't tell, I move at a fire hose pace. I got a lot of information I want to share, and I keep it to a 30-minute window. So let's dive into this, starting with what is targeting as it relates to federal sales and the 7-step process that I teach. Fundamentally, it really is building a list of 1 to 200 people's names, right? It's names, phone numbers, and emails. That's the definition of done for a target list, a targeting list, right? Is names, phone numbers, and emails. If you don't have all 3, you haven't built your lead list. It takes work sometimes, and I'm going to show you how to find that information. But you really want to have 1 to 200 people out there. I've done a lot of previous training on targeting and approaching it for different ways, and you can go back and watch that. But I talk about once you get 1 or 200 names, you want to keep your target list always at 100. That way, if you find yourself going down to 75 because you just called 25 people, just next week add 25 more back in. Targeting is identifying the right people to contact. So I'm going to tell you who they are in another slide, but basically you're trying to find the right people to contact. Before you can outreach to anybody, you need to know who those right people are. And so they're federal buyers, right? These are federal buyers who will let you in the door, talk about their agency, talk about their needs, et cetera, or introduce you to somebody else. They might not talk about anything, but they might introduce you to somebody else. There are also stakeholders at large and small government contracting firms, people you might want to team with, people you might want to just build a relationship with, because like I said, you're going after the Army. So targeting is building a list around a common agency. That's why I asked you, what's your target agency? A common agency, and then finding people who are both government and industry personnel. So that's what is targeting. Here's why you should be doing targeting. What I really want you to remember. First off, the biggest thing to remember is that buyers aren't going to come to you. You shouldn't expect them to come to you. Right? You need to go out and knock on their door. Now, admittedly, I teach visibility and how important it is to be visible if the buyers are looking for you, but don't expect buyers to come to you. It's our job to go to the buyer, right? And so we want to do targeting by identifying who those people are. When you do targeting and you have that list of 100 to 200 people, you know who you're going to sell to, right? And I'll talk in a minute about it's a marketing plan, but this idea of knowing who you're going to sell to and exactly who you're going to call. When you have a target list, you don't wing it anymore, right? And that's what I put in bullet number 4. You'll stop winging your federal sales efforts. And really think about this, right? When you're coming in every day, you're starting your day or your week, what is your sales plan, your activity that's going in? Do you say to yourself that I'm going to spend this amount of time each day calling this amount of new people, right? Forget about all the other activity you have in your day. This targeting part is about calling new people and bringing new people into your world, networking, building relationships, et cetera. And are you winging it right now? Or are you following a really specific plan? Well, when you do targeting, you're going to start following a marketing plan. Even if that targeting effort you do is similar to how I do it, where I just use a spreadsheet and I have names, numbers, and emails. That's a marketing plan. It's a marketing plan because it tells me what agency I'm going after, the Army, right? It tells me who I'm going to reach out to. I have a marketing plan that says, this is my plan to get into the Army. I'm calling these people, or I'm contacting these people. How are you doing that? Well, I'm doing it through email and I'm doing it through phone, right? And well, how are you going to measure the success? Well, the number of people who answer me, the number of people who talk to me about their agency or their company, the number of people who set up meetings with me, right? That's how I'm going to measure it. So this targeting effort not only is just about putting people's names and numbers in there, but it's giving you a marketing plan that you can follow, so that way you're not doing ad hoc or reactive or winging your federal sales effort, but you're really following a plan. And the last thing is it enables you to play the numbers game. Sales is a numbers game. I've been doing sales since I've been doing it since like 10, when I had a paper route and I had to sell newspapers. But it really started when I started becoming a student of sales when I was 18 selling vacuum cleaners door to door, and I've gone through selling multi-billion-dollar solutions, right? So it's gone this whole gamut, but sales, no matter what you're selling, is a numbers game. You have to contact enough potential customers in order to make a sale. And so when you do targeting, you're creating a list of 100 or 200 people. Only some of those people are going to answer the phone or respond to your email. Only some of those people who respond are going to be interested in what you sell. Only some of those people who are interested in what you sell will have a need. That need is a very small percentage. It'll be 2 to 10% of the people you reach out to if you're really niching down on who to target. But when you reach out to 100 people or 200 people, now you've done enough. Now you're reaching out to enough people, that numbers game, that you will be able to find the 2 or 3 or 4 that want to build strategic relationships with you and team with you, that want to buy from you, right? It's a numbers game. Targeting is the beginning of that game. So let's talk about when you should be doing targeting. Targeting in federal sales really is, when you think about it, it's when you're trying to do business development into a new agency, right? Generally, you're not doing targeting as it relates to capture, because capture is a single opportunity, and you're probably looking at 20 or less people that would have anything to do with that. All right, you might go a little bit more, but generally, targeting is a business development activity. I want to go into the Army, so let me find 100 to 200 names of people and numbers and emails that I can reach out to, right? So before you do any kind of major effort, you go in. I have a workshop, and in our workshop, we help people do exactly that. And while we're doing that, we teach them the process, and we tell them, you follow this process, you will now be able to go over to the Navy, Department of Education, et cetera, following the process. In my workshop, I just help them, right? We accelerate the process. But what I'm teaching you is exactly what I teach them. So just follow this. If you're not working with me, just follow what I teach you, and you will have the same success. If you want to push into a large prime, we had a customer that wanted to push into a large prime like Booz Allen, and we were able to do targeting where we had 100 to 200 names that were Booz Allen people. These are good people to reach out to. I'll put it in perspective. Boeing, as an example, has 14,000 buyers. When you look at a large business, if you're really trying to go in there, you can do targeting and find 1 to 200 people who begin to become your entry points into that large prime so that you can do something in there. And the third one, last one here on when you should do targeting, you should do targeting when you're trying to find strategic partners that are small businesses. An example is if you're a woman-owned small business, like this person I was talking about this morning who does data management, I was suggesting that they might want to team up with an 8A firm, because 8A firms, or she's not an 8A, so she could get access to any 8A, direct awards or Stars 3, things like that. And I said, well, you want to build a list of 1 to 200 8A firms and then begin to reach out to them to find the ones that work for you. And so she would do that, in my opinion, going to Stars 3 contract holders. There's 5,000 8A firms. There's 1,200 Stars 3 contract holders. I would look in there. And in fact, what I would tell her is just start with women-owned 8A firms that are Stars 3, because there's another common connection there that maybe you guys can do as you team up, et cetera. But when you want to reach out and find small business teaming partners or strategic partners that you might potentially work with in the future, targeting is that's an ideal time to do targeting. Okay, so who should you be doing targeting with? And here I broke down the who into these 3 main groups of people. I don't know if you've heard me do different training where I say there's 3 ways you can make money. You can make money in the federal government. You can make money subcontracting under a small business. You can make money as a prime contractor with federal agencies, and you can make money as a subcontractor under large prime vendors. That's why when I make lists, I tend to group them that way, because they are 3 distinct stakeholder groups to me. And so when you think about federal agencies, the type of people you want to be putting on your target list are contracting officers or anybody else in the acquisition side of the house. For example, contract specialists, branch chiefs. We're reaching out to the Army, ironically, with another customer, and we're looking at division chiefs that are out there. These branch leads, division chiefs, and they're in charge of a bunch of contracting officers themselves. So like a division chief might have 50 or 100 contracting officers under them. So those type of people are ones to reach out to. This Army organization we're reaching out to, we had I think it was at least 10 or 12 division chiefs alone, right? So those kind of people, I might be able to reach in and follow down and find 100 or 200 contracting officers if that's what I wanted, right? You want to make sure they're focused on who you need around your core competency. Small business professionals. These are small business specialists. They're, I think, deputy directors of small business in the DoD. They're, you might think about the Osdeboo shop, et cetera. Those small business professionals are people who should be on your targeting list when you're trying to get into an agency. And then obviously program office personnel. If you're doing data management, the chief data officer, any of the data stewards and data set owners, people like that, you begin to understand who they are. And I'll talk about how do you find them in a second at the next slide. So in small businesses, these are pretty straightforward because small businesses tend to have a smaller group of people, right? 100 people on a high side, but usually you might be looking at 20 people or less for the majority of the small businesses out there. And so you want to, the number one person you want to reach out to is a small business owner, especially if you are a small business owner doing this targeting activity and outreach. You want to reach out owner to owner. There's a lot of shared experiences there that you can find. But even if you're a business developer or capture person, reach out to the owner and get to know who they are. Add them to your list, add their leaders. So they might have VPs of whatever, add them in. I often see like chief marketing officer, chief growth officer, head of VP of customer service, whatever it is. Anybody in a small business that's in a leadership role is fair game for your target list because they're all going to be willing to talk if the conversation is leading towards mutual growth, right? And the last group is sales team. I didn't put specifics in there because in small businesses, they tend not to have a lot of people. And so you want to find out who's in there. I'll talk about how you can find them in a minute. So large primes, there's 7 that I really like within large prime contractors that you can add to your list. So the first one is business development leads. An example of this is there would be a business development lead responsible for all of the Navy or Air Force, for example, or HHS. That's a business development lead. They're in there, they're understanding the agency, they're getting to build relationships that they have, and they're identifying opportunities. And then it feeds into the capture lead, right? So these capture leads tend to work on 4 to 10 opportunities at a time at most, and they're really pushing forward. And this is another group of people. You can find these type of people's information pretty quickly out there because they're salespeople and they want to be visible. There's practice area leads. And so I think about Booz Allen as an example. I can go into Booz Allen or SAIC. I went and found the head of SAIC's cloud, right? And able to go in there and see them. Contract vehicles. So if you go into a large prime contractor, they have many contract vehicles. And often you can go onto their website and see who's managing those contract vehicles. The contract vehicles have a program manager and a contract administrator. They might have a few other people, but those are pretty typical. Those are the people who manage the vehicle, sometimes multiple vehicles, but they manage the vehicle compared to separately down on number 7, customer facing program managers. They're the ones who are doing the task orders, et cetera. So you want to find those kind of people. And the last one, number 6, reshifting my order there a little bit, are the small business liaison officers, right? And so these SBLOs, these are great people who can get you in. You can find a lot of these people's information. Might as well tell you right now, because I forgot about this in the next slide, is you can find this information. If you go to NASA, they'll show you which large primes are working with us, and here's their SBLOs. We have a whole list of all of them in there, but you're able to find these liaison officers. So you see 7 different people at large primes. And when you think about building a list of 1 to 200 people, it's not going to be hard. It'd be a little bit of time consuming, but literally you could do this in less than a week. That's 1 to 200 people to reach out to. That's a pretty amazing amount. Okay, so let's spend the rest of our time talking about how and where do you go to get to build your targeted list. So the important thing about a target list is that you're identifying the primary agency, and then you want a name, a phone number, and an email. Those are the 3 things we're looking for. And so I did not put these in any particular order, and I'm just going to go down through some of them, but some of them are going to be new to you. Some of them are going to be gold mines to you. So the first one is the dynamic small business search. That's where you go when you want to find the small business owners for the for any small business. Go in there and find the owners. Sometimes they have a point of contact. Sometimes they have an additional name. There's a field called current principals, and sometimes people put in 2 or 3 people in addition to the primary owner. So that's a great place to go. Another place that I forgot, and I could have put it on here, and I alluded to it earlier, are contract vehicles. Let's call this a bonus to number 1. But contract vehicles, you can go to GSA and find primary points of contact for companies on their contract vehicles. 8A Stars 3 as an example. You can download a whole spreadsheet of all 1,200 companies that are contract holders, and in there is a name, a number, and an email for the primary point of contact for STARS 3. So there's ways to do that and get that information off of contract vehicles. The second one is FPDS and USA spending. So this is a great way to go in and find information about contracting officers. For example, you can find these in FPDS by just going up to the top right of an opportunity. When you open it up, not an opportunity, but an awarded contract, you can open up the item in FPDS, and the top right is usually a point of contact, a name, a number, or and an email, one of those three things. Usually it's just an email actually and a name, but then you follow up on Google or wherever else to learn more. USA spending is another great way to go in there, because if you're trying to build a target list, sometimes that target list begins with finding out what is the organization of an agency or who's selling into that agency. And you take that information away, let's say company names, and then you go feed it into DSBS. You go check out their websites, et cetera. But USA spending allows you to do your research pretty heavily. So 3 here is LinkedIn. This one is fantastic for finding people's names and to be able to see them on LinkedIn and what they're doing. You still usually have to go off to Google and get information about their phone number and their email. It just takes time to do it. But LinkedIn, I can go into any particular agency and see tens, hundreds, thousands of employees at a particular place. If I want to get into the Army, I can go to one particular subordinate command and see 50 or 100 people minimum in that subordinate command. And that's the start of my research, right? Like, okay, now I know their names. Let me go out to Google and now start finding other information. So Google is number 4. And I talk about this. Google is your best friend for everything, right? So you can dive in. Number 5, though, is GovTribe. This is my favorite tool, hands down, for tough targeting. When I go find information from FPDS and, oh, here's a KO's name and maybe their email address or whatever. When I do that, I can go over to GovTribe. And ironically, usually I reach GovTribe by going to Google, and the first set of results has GovTribe coming up. But for some reason, their data set and the way they present it or something comes up, I'm often seeing a person's name, number, and email. If all I do is search on their name, like, John Smith Army, it'll come up in GovTribe. So check that out on Google. And if you like it, subscribe. And if enough of you subscribe, tell me, and I'll go get GovTribe to do some special stuff for us. Number 6, websites. And so this is a big one, right? It's an expansion beyond Google. But websites for the agency, I go in there and I can find a ton of information. Lately, we've been sharing out these decks, and I'll talk about them in a minute, but these decks have a lot of information. Sometimes I get that information from within the agency. Yesterday, I shared Department of Labor's a whole bunch of information about them, but their org charts. And it showed me an org chart for the OCIO, the Office of Chief Information Officer. So there I had like 20 or 30 people in there. It only had names, no emails or phone numbers, but that's fine. I didn't even know who they were. So I'm able to pull them out, put them into my spreadsheet and say, okay, I'm going to go after them. Businesses, this is like Booz Allen or some small business. You can go in there and you can often find names, numbers, and emails. When I talked earlier about contract vehicle program managers or contract administrators, that's on Booz Allen and GDIT and Boeing's website. You can go in there and find that information. And last one I had here for websites is the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. We have done so much content over the last 5 years, and a big part of our focus when we share content is making sure that we're giving you people's names, numbers, and emails. We'll put org charts in there. Often we'll put org charts with names, numbers, and emails and a LinkedIn connection to their profile. Ton of stuff in there. So make sure you're browsing through the website. And by the way, make sure you're coming back again and again over the next week, because we're about to refresh it into kind of a new look and feel. No big fanfare, but if you're here today, check it out. Number 7, 8, 9, these are all SBA points of contact, Small Business Administration. So PCRs are a great group of people to get information. I have somebody who gave me a whole bunch of new Air Force contacts for us to add to our small business directory, because they talked to a PCR and the PCR gave it to them. PCRs are responsible with interacting with certain agencies, and in particular, the contracting officer. So that's a great person to talk to, saying, do you know people? Do you have a list of numbers I can call, et cetera? SBA district or business opportunity specialists, they're in the district office as well. but the bosses are great advocates and work with all the 8As that are out there, but they're also available to the rest of us. And they know a lot of the agencies because they work with agencies constantly to approve 8A sole source contracts, et cetera. They know a lot of buyers. When you're trying to build a list of buyers at the Army, go find the business opportunity specialist near the Army or the PCR. And the SBA district office just has more of these professionals. PTAC and Apex Accelerator, they're renamed now. They're a great advocate as well. They interact a lot. Industry briefing decks and attendee lists. This is a big one. I'm just tracking my time here. Make sure you search. If you're trying to go after the Army, and that's my agency for today, if you're trying to go after the Army, go look for industry briefing decks from a previous event. They just did one a couple of months ago. They did one at the beginning of the year. They did a couple last year. Go find them. By the way, it doesn't matter if it's 2 or 3 years old. The government doesn't change that fast. A lot of their data is still relevant after 2, 5, 10 years even. But go find those industry decks. Another thing you can do is look for industry days where, and usually those are put into SAM is a great way to look for them. But often they'll come back after the fact and they'll update the briefing deck and they'll update an attendee list. And so if you're trying to find businesses, teaming partners that are getting into the Army, especially as it relates to a particular industry, not just generic, but maybe on IT or construction, you'll see an attendee list of 100 or 200 or 300 people who are all signed up, and it's names, numbers, and emails, or at least names and emails and their company. So look at that for number 11. Number 12, again, on our website, we have a small business directory or a federal directory of small business professionals. This is over 1,000 names, numbers, and email addresses for people you want to reach out to, small business professionals in federal agencies, small business liaison officers in large primes. And I think we even have in there PTACs and PCRs and folks like that. So it's one place. It's a free directory on govconchamber.com. So go get that. That is a must-have one for you. So here's two really cool ones I think that you should be paying attention to. Number 13 is my profile. An example is every single day I'm sharing content. Yesterday I shared 22 names, numbers, and emails of small business professionals within the Department of Labor. I did that with the Navy a couple of times last week, and I did Department of State. We did a bunch, right? So the team keeps putting this stuff together, and I'm sharing it on my profile. You want to make sure you're following my profile and get that. So go to my profile. There's a bell on the top. If you haven't already, click on the bell so you're notified every day when I post something, generally about 8 o'clock in the morning. But that content is purely designed to be a tool for you in order for you to be able to get done what you want to get done faster. We do the research so you can do the calling. And last one is my favorite. It's the global address list. You only have access to this if you're already inside the wire, is what we say, right? But let's say you're working for the Department of Education. You're in there and you have email, right? So think about Microsoft Exchange or Outlook. You have email. If you pull up your email, you have an address book. When you have it on your own computer, it's just called an address book. When you have it inside of an agency or a company, it's called a global address list. Global address list has everybody who's in Department of Homeland Security or Department of Education. When you go in there, you can find people's names, numbers, and emails. Do not go in there and grab stuff, pull it out, and spam, because you will be found out. But you can use it to strategically build your target list. If I'm doing data, I might go into Department of Homeland Security and say, show me all the CDAOs, the chief data officers, right? And I can look in there and I can strategically reach out. So you decide what level you want to use, but that thing is a gold mine. Even the people within agencies and companies don't really pay attention to the fact that it exists and it's there for them. So here's what I want you to remember from today's training. The main thing is you can't depend on buyers to come to you, right? You have to go to them, and targeting is about preparing yourself to go to them. I want you to pick one agency. Just try this with one agency and build a list of 200 people and then get names, numbers, and emails. If you do this, then you can call people, just 10 people a day, cold calling, right? And 8 of them won't even answer the phone, 9 of them. So you just leave a voicemail, but you can call 10 people a day, 50 people a week. You can be through those 200 people in 4 weeks. Potentially you just reached out to 200 new people. When is the last time you reached out to 200 people ever? When was the last time you reached out to 200 people when you didn't go to a conference, right? Where you sat at your desk and you reached out. This is a way to do it in 15 to 30 minutes a day. That's tops. And you will build relationships with teammates and agency folks. Come back to tomorrow's training. We're doing, we're doing training every single day. So tomorrow's training is the third step of the 7-step process, outreach. And really, it's about how to do cold calls warmed up, right? And so I'll talk about what that all is and then how to do it. If you'd like to work with me, if you're thinking about working with me, happy to talk to you about it. We have a BD Accelerator workshop, but it's for companies that are a little further along, doing like 2 million plus, and that you have watched my training. So just send me a message if you're interested. For the rest of you, remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.